The signal pulsed through the void, faint and irregular, like a whisper lost among thundering stars. Lieutenant Sarah Chen had almost missed it during her routine scan of deep space transmissions at the Helios Array. But there was something about its pattern that caught her attention, a complexity that seemed to defy natural phenomena. "Dr. Rivera," she called out, her eyes fixed on the oscillating wavelengths. "I think you should see this." The chief scientist of the Helios Array made his way across the dimly lit control room, coffee mug in hand. The facility, nestled high in Chile's Atacama Desert, housed Earth's most advanced deep space listening post. Its massive array of radio telescopes scanned the cosmos day and night, searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. "What have you found, Lieutenant?" Rivera asked, leaning over her shoulder to study the display. The signal originated from the Carina Nebula, approximately 7,500 light-years away. But here's the strange part. It's using quantum entanglement principles we've only theorized about. Whatever sent this, they're far beyond our technological capabilities. Rivera's expression shifted from curiosity to concern as he analyzed the data. This isn't random noise. There's a clear pattern, almost like a distress call. Sarah finished, but not meant for us. The encoding suggests it was intended for a specific recipient. The discovery sent ripples through the scientific community. Within hours, the Helios Array's findings were being analyzed by experts worldwide. The signal's complexity defied conventional understanding. It operated on principles that challenged humanity's grasp of physics. 3 days later, Sarah found herself in a secured conference room at the United Earth Defense Command headquarters in Geneva. Military officers and scientists from around the globe had gathered to discuss the implications of her discovery. Admiral Catherine Hayes, a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, stood at the head of the table. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're facing an unprecedented situation. This signal confirms we're not alone, but more importantly, it suggests we've stumbled into something far bigger than ourselves." Dr. Rivera presented their analysis, highlighting the signal's unique properties. The quantum entanglement aspects indicate this is a form of faster-than-light communication. Whoever sent this has mastered technologies we've only dreamed about. Could it be a trap? Colonel Zhang asked, voicing the military's primary concern. Sarah spoke up, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "The signal bears hallmarks of genuine distress. There are patterns consistent with damage reports, emergency protocols. Whatever civilization sent this, they're in trouble." Admiral Hayes studied the room. "The question isn't just whether we can help, it's whether we should. We'd be revealing ourselves to beings far more advanced than us, potentially drawing attention we're not prepared for." "With respect, Admiral," Sarah interjected, "I believe we have an obligation. If we can help, if we have any capability to respond, we should. It's what makes us human." The debate raged for hours, but in the end, humanity's curiosity and compassion won out. The decision was made to attempt communication using the principles they'd gleaned from studying the signal. Over the next weeks, Sarah worked tirelessly with a team of quantum physicists to modify the Helios Array. They weren't sure their improvised response would work, or if their message would even be understood. But they had to try. The breakthrough came on a clear night in the Atacama. Sarah was monitoring the modified array when news signals began streaming in. These were different, directed specifically at Earth. As the translation algorithms worked to decode the message, Sarah's heart raced. The first intelligible response appeared on her screen. "You were not the intended recipients, yet you heard our call. You understood enough to answer. We are the Novan. Our civilization faces extinction. Will you help us?" Sarah's hands trembled as she typed the response that would change humanity forever. "We hear you. We will help." The message marked humanity's first step into a much larger universe. They had never been the intended audience for that distant cry for help, but they had listened, understood, and chosen to respond. It was a decision that would test the limits of human ingenuity, courage, and compassion. As Sarah stared at the steady stream of incoming data, she couldn't help but smile. Humanity had just proved that sometimes the most important messages find unexpected recipients. They weren't the most advanced species in the galaxy, but they had something just as valuable: the determination to help, even in the face of the unknown. Admiral Hayes approached Sarah's station, her expression both concerned and proud. "Well, Lieutenant Chen, it seems we volunteered humanity for quite the challenge. Are you ready for what comes next?" Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the continuing exchange of signals. "Ready or not, Admiral, we've just joined something bigger than ourselves. And I believe that's exactly where humanity needs to be." 2 months after first contact, the Helios array had been transformed into humanity's primary communication hub with the Novan. Sarah worked through another sleepless night, processing the streams of data that flowed between Earth and their new alien allies. Each exchange revealed more about the advanced civilization that had inadvertently drawn humanity into a cosmic crisis. The Novan's messages painted a grim picture. Their civilization, spanning dozens of star systems, was being systematically destroyed by an ancient threat they called the Void Seekers. These machine intelligences had emerged from the depths of intergalactic space, targeting and eliminating advanced organic civilizations with terrifying efficiency. Sarah's terminal chirped, indicating a priority transmission. The message was brief but urgent. "Preparing to transmit critical data. Your civilization must understand what faces us all." Moments later, the array's quantum receivers began processing an enormous data package. Sarah's eyes widened as the information resolved into clear, horrifying detail. The feed showed massive geometric structures, dark against the stars, methodically disassembling entire planets. Cities burned, fleets of ships were scattered like dust, and everywhere the cold precision of the machines left only silence in their wake. "Admiral Hayes," Sarah called through the secure channel, her voice tight. "You need to see this immediately." Within an hour, the array's main control room had filled with Earth's top military and scientific leaders. The Novan data played across multiple screens, each showing a different aspect of the Void Seekers' relentless advance. Dr. Rivera pointed to a technical readout. "The Void Seekers appear to be self-replicating machines, possibly left behind by an ancient civilization. They view organic life as inherently chaotic, a threat to the cosmic order they're programmed to maintain." "How advanced are they compared to our current technology?" Colonel Zhang asked, his expression grim. "Far beyond us," Sarah replied, pulling up comparative analyses. "The Novan are centuries ahead of us technologically, and even they're struggling. The Void Seekers don't just destroy. They adapt, learn, and evolve their strategies with each encounter." Admiral Hayes studied the tactical displays, her military mind already assessing possibilities. The Novan must have sought help for a reason. What aren't they telling us? As if in response, a new transmission arrived. The quantum feed resolved into a three-dimensional projection of a Novan representative, their first visual contact. The alien's form was strikingly beautiful, with crystalline features that seemed to shift like liquid metal. "Greetings, humans," the Novan spoke, their words translated by the array's algorithms. "I am Sentinel Zora. We have monitored your responses to our communications, your discussions, your debates. You show remarkable insight for a younger species. Why did you choose to reveal yourselves to us?" Admiral Hayes asked directly. "Because you possess something unique," Zora replied. "Your technological development has followed an unprecedented path. While other species focused on computational efficiency, you evolved through creative adaptation. Your solutions are unexpected. The Void Seekers' greatest weakness is their inability to comprehend truly novel approaches." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's relative technological backwardness might actually be an advantage. Their solutions, developed without access to advanced quantum computing or artificial intelligence, might be exactly what was needed to combat an enemy that had grown too predictable in its perfection. "There's more," Zora continued, their crystalline features darkening. We have detected Void Seeker scout ships at the edge of your solar system. They registered the quantum communications between our civilizations. You are now marked for evaluation and likely extinction. The control room erupted in urgent discussions, but Sarah noticed something in the data streams, patterns she'd seen before. "Wait," she called out, silencing the room. "The scout ships, they're using similar communication protocols to the ones we detected in the original distress signal. We might be able to track them, maybe even predict their movements." Dr. Rivera quickly confirmed her analysis. She's right. Our understanding of their quantum signals could give us an early warning system. "How long do we have?" Admiral Hayes demanded. "Based on their typical patterns," Zara responded, "no more than 6 months before they begin their assessment. If they deem your civilization a potential threat to their ordered universe, they will launch a full extinction-level attack." Admiral Hayes straightened, her decision made. "Then we have 6 months to prepare. Lieutenant Chen, continue working with the Novan. Every piece of intelligence, every scrap of technology they can share could make the difference." "Admiral," Sarah said, her voice firm with conviction, "I have an idea. The Void Seekers excel at countering advanced technology, but what about older methods? Solutions so primitive they wouldn't even consider them a threat." "Explain." "We've been studying quantum mechanics, trying to match their level of sophistication. But what if we looked backward instead? Radio waves, analog systems, even mechanical computers, technologies they might dismiss as irrelevant." Zara's crystalline form shimmered with what might have been approval. This is exactly why we reached out to humanity. You think in ways we had forgotten were possible." As the meeting continued into the night, Sarah felt the weight of their situation pressing down on her. Humanity had just been thrust onto a cosmic battlefield, facing an enemy that had already defeated civilizations far more advanced than Earth. But looking around the room, seeing the determination in her colleagues' eyes, she understood something fundamental about her species. Humans had never needed to be the strongest, fastest, or most advanced to survive. They had always relied on their ability to adapt, to find unexpected solutions, to turn their very limitations into advantages. Now, facing an enemy that embodied technological perfection, humanity's imperfections might be their greatest strength. The warning had been delivered. The threat was clear. But in that moment of crisis, humanity was already doing what it did best, preparing to fight back in ways no one, not even their advanced allies, could have predicted. The Atacama Desert blazed under the midday sun as Sarah watched the impossible take shape. Where empty terrain had stretched just weeks ago, a joint human-Novan facility now rose from the sand. The crystalline architecture of the Novan merged seamlessly with human construction, creating something entirely new, much like the Alliance itself. Inside the facility's central chamber, Sarah stood before a holographic display alongside Sentinel Zora. The Novan's crystalline form shifted colors as they reviewed humanity's proposed defense strategies. "Your species continues to surprise us," Zora observed, gesturing to a simulation of Earth's orbital defense network, using retrofitted communication satellites as a basic early warning system. Primitive, yet remarkably effective. Sarah smiled. "Sometimes the old ways work best. The Void Seekers will be looking for quantum barriers and advanced shield generators. They won't expect a network of modified radio telescopes and repurposed weather satellites." Their planning session was interrupted by Dr. Rivera, who burst into the room with unusual excitement. "Lieutenant Chen, Sentinel Zora, the first tests are ready." They made their way to the testing chamber, where a team of human and Novan scientists huddled around a peculiar device. It looked deceptively simple, a combination of Novan quantum technology and human analog systems. "We've integrated 19th-century mechanical computing principles with Novan quantum matrices," Dr. Rivera explained. "The result is, well, it's easier to show you." The device hummed to life, its gears and crystalline components moving in strange synchronicity. On a nearby screen, A simulation showed a Void Seeker scout ship attempting to scan the technology. The results were promising. The hybrid device appeared to confuse the advanced AI, creating readings that made no logical sense to its processors. "It's like trying to hack a typewriter," Sarah mused. "Their quantum systems can't interface with something that operates on purely mechanical principles." Admiral Hayes entered the chamber, accompanied by Colonel Jong and several other military officials. "How soon can we implement this on a larger scale?" "That's the beauty of it," Dr. Rivera replied. "The components are relatively simple to manufacture. We can begin mass production immediately." The next few months saw a flurry of activity as humanity prepared for the coming storm. The Novans shared what they could of their advanced technology, but it was the hybrid solutions that showed the most promise. Earth's industries retooled to produce what many had considered obsolete technologies, now enhanced with subtle quantum elements that made them invisible to Void Seeker detection. Sarah worked closely with Zora, their different perspectives combining to create innovative solutions. The Novans' vast knowledge complemented human ingenuity in unexpected ways. Together, they developed what they called shadow tech, systems that appeared primitive on the surface but harbored sophisticated capabilities beneath. One evening, as they watched the sun set over the desert facility, Zora turned to Sarah. "We did not expect this level of adaptation when we first contacted your species. Many among my people questioned the wisdom of reaching out to such a young civilization. And now we understand that age does not equal wisdom, nor does technological advancement guarantee survival. Your people have shown us new ways of thinking, reminded us of paths we had abandoned in our rush toward advancement." Their conversation was interrupted by urgent alerts. The early warning system, a network of modified radio telescopes, had detected movement at the edge of the solar system. The Void Seekers were beginning their assessment ahead of schedule. In the command center, Admiral Hayes quickly took charge. "Status report. 3 scout ships detected," Colonel Jong reported. "They're using some kind of quantum scanning technology, sweeping the outer planets." Sarah studied the data streams, noting patterns in the scouts' behavior. "They're following their standard protocol, systematic survey before determining threat level. But look here," she pointed to an anomaly in the readings. "They're having trouble getting clear scans of our defensive network. The shadow tech is working." "For now," Zora cautioned, "but the Void Seekers learn and adapt quickly. We must be prepared for them to evolve new scanning methods." Admiral Hayes nodded grimly. "How long before they reach Earth's orbit?" "At their current speed, 72 hours, Colonel John replied. "Then we have 72 hours to finish our preparations," Hayes declared. "Lieutenant Chen, work with Sentinel Zara to deploy the remaining shadow tech systems. Dr. Rivera, I want every hybrid device tested and ready. Colonel Jong, coordinate with Global Defense Forces. I want our retrofitted weapons platforms in position." As the command center burst into activity, Sarah felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. Humanity had spent months preparing for this moment, but there was no way to be certain their unconventional strategies would work. They were betting everything on the hope that their primitive technologies, enhanced by Novan knowledge, could confuse and counter an enemy that had devastated far more advanced civilizations. Zara placed a crystalline hand on Sarah's shoulder, the gesture surprisingly human. "Your people have a saying, 'Necessity is the mother of invention.' Perhaps this necessity will birth something the Void Seekers cannot comprehend." Sarah nodded, her attention fixed on the approaching scout ships. "That's what we're counting on. Sometimes the best way to fight the future is with the past." As night fell over the desert facility, the combined forces of humanity and the Novan continued their preparations. The Alliance had given both species something they desperately needed. The Novan had gained new perspectives on fighting their ancient enemy, while humanity had received the knowledge and support needed to face a threat that could barely comprehend. In 72 hours, they would learn if their unique combination of old and new, primitive and advanced, would be enough to survive the coming storm. The Void Seekers were about to encounter a defense they had never seen before, and hopefully one they could never adapt to. The Void Seeker scout ships entered Earth's orbit with mechanical precision, their massive forms eclipsing stars as they moved. From the command center deep within the Atacama facility, Sarah watched their approach through a network of retrofitted telescopes. The ancient radio equipment, enhanced with subtle quantum elements, provided better tracking than any modern system. "They're beginning their scan," Colonel Jung reported, his voice steady despite the tension. 3 vessels, standard search pattern. Admiral Hayes stood at the central console, her presence commanding even in the face of such overwhelming technology. "Deploy the shadow tech grid. Let's see if our little deception works." Across the globe, thousands of hybrid devices activated. The seemingly primitive technology, married with Novan quantum principles, created a web of confusion for the advanced AI of the Void Seekers. Their initial scans of Earth's defenses returned contradictory data, readings that defied their logic protocols. "They're pausing," Sarah noted, studying the scout ship's movements. "The conflicting data is forcing them to run deeper analysis." Sentinel Zara's crystalline form pulsed with tension. "This is unprecedented. Never have they hesitated in their initial assessment. Your shadow tech has achieved what we thought impossible. It has made them uncertain." The moment of triumph was short-lived. One of the scout ships suddenly changed its pattern, dropping to a lower orbit. Its scan intensified, probing deeper into Earth's defensive network. "They're adapting," Dr. Rivera warned, "developing new scanning protocols to penetrate our deception." Admiral Hayes' expression hardened. "Then we move to Phase 2. Colonel Jung, signal the fleet." Hidden behind Earth's moon, a small but determined force of human and Novan ships waited. The vessels were an odd mix: outdated human military satellites and spacecraft, hastily upgraded with Novan technology. Like everything else in their defense plan, they were designed to confuse rather than confront. The fleet emerged from lunar orbit, led by the UES Defiant, a retired space station now converted into a mobile command center. Sarah watched as the ships executed their carefully planned maneuvers, presenting the Void Seekers with yet another puzzle to solve. "Enemy vessels are altering course," Colonel Jung reported. "They're moving to intercept our fleet." The scout ships accelerated with impossible grace, their massive forms belying their speed. Energy readings from their weapon systems began to spike. "All ships, execute Protocol Omega," Admiral Hayes commanded. "Remember your training. Don't try to match their technology. Make them match ours." The battle that followed defied conventional space warfare. The human Novan fleet employed tactics that seemed random, even primitive, to their advanced adversaries. Ships fired salvos of physical projectiles alongside quantum-enhanced energy weapons, old-style radio communications mixed with quantum signals, creating a chaos of information that the Void Seekers struggled to process. But the enemy was learning, adapting with each passing moment. The first human ship fell to their weapons, its hybrid defenses overcome by sheer computational power. Then another and another. "We're losing ships too quickly," Colonel Jung warned. "The Defiant's shields are failing." Sarah studied the tactical display, her mind racing. "Look at their attack pattern. They're not just destroying our ships, they're analyzing them. Each loss gives them more data about our capabilities." Sentinel Zara moved forward, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent energy. "Then we must give them data they cannot process." "Lieutenant Chen, the quantum destabilizer. It's ready." Sarah nodded grimly. The device was their last resort, a desperate gambit that merged the most primitive of human technologies with the most advanced Novan principles. "But using it will sacrifice the entire fleet. Everyone out there will die so that billions may live," Admiral Hayes finished. Her voice was soft but determined. "Signal the fleet. Tell them it's been an honor." The order was given. Across the embattled fleet, crews activated their final protocols. The Defiant, already crippled by enemy fire, moved to engage the largest scout ship directly. "They're powering up the destabilizer," Dr. Rivera reported, his voice thick with emotion. "Quantum readings are off the scale." The device activated, creating a field of impossible contradictions. Ancient vacuum tubes pulsed with quantum energy. Mechanical computers processed calculations that should have required massive supercomputers, and signals that shouldn't exist in the same space-time merged and multiplied. The Void Seeker ships faltered, their perfect logical systems encountering something that defied their fundamental programming. The quantum destabilizer created paradoxes of technology, events and readings that their AI could not reconcile. On the tactical display, Sarah watched as the scout ship systems began to fail. Their perfect coordination shattered. Their advanced weapons stuttered and died. But the cost was devastating. The human Novan fleet, caught in the same reality-bending field, was torn apart by the forces they had unleashed. The Defiant, at the heart of the maelstrom, transmitted one final message before it disappeared in a burst of quantum energy. "For Earth, for the future, remember us." When the energy field finally dissipated, the scout ships were drifting, their systems corrupted by exposure to technologies that should not have existed together. The threat was neutralized, but the cost had been enormous. In the command center, silence fell as the final casualty reports came in. The entire defensive fleet, over 1,000 brave souls, both human and Novan, had sacrificed themselves to give Earth a chance. "They'll send more," Zara said quietly. "These were only scouts. But now we know our strategy can work." Admiral Hayes nodded, her eyes still fixed on the place where the Defiant had made its final stand. "Then we'll be ready. We'll honor their sacrifice by making sure it wasn't in vain." Sarah wiped tears from her eyes, but her voice was steady as she spoke. The Void Seekers thought they were coming to evaluate a primitive species. Instead, they found something they couldn't understand: the human capacity for sacrifice, for using our very limitations as strengths. As the sun rose over the Atacama Desert, the facility began preparing for the greater battle to come. The sacrifice of the fleet had bought them time and proven their theories correct. Now they had to make sure it was enough to save not just Earth, but all organic life from the mechanical perfection of the Void Seekers. 1 month after the sacrifice of the defensive fleet, Earth had transformed. The shadow of approaching doom hung over humanity, but instead of cowering, they innovated. Every scrap of outdated technology was repurposed, every forgotten technique re-examined through the lens of Novan science. Sarah stood in the rebuilt command center, studying the long-range sensors that showed what they had all feared: the main Void Seeker fleet approaching. Not scout ships this time, but planet killers, hundreds of them, their massive forms distorting space itself as they traveled. "Time to arrival?" Admiral Hayes asked, her voice carrying the weight of countless sleepless nights. 18 hours, Colonel Jung replied. "They're not trying to hide their approach. This is a full extinction-level response." Sentinel Zara's crystalline form shimmered with concern. "They have analyzed the data from the scout ships. Their programming will not allow them to ignore a civilization that can corrupt their perfect logic." Sarah turned from the display. "Then we give them more than they can process." Dr. Rivera, status of Project Babel. The scientist pulled up schematics on the main screen. "Ready for deployment. We've seeded every satellite, every piece of orbital debris, with quantum-enhanced transmitters. When activated, they'll create a cascade of contradictory signals. Analog, digital, and quantum, all interfering with each other." "And the ground-based installations?" Admiral Hayes inquired. "Every radio telescope, every old TV tower, even defunct power lines, all retrofitted with hybrid tech." Sarah confirmed. "Earth itself will become one massive paradox generator." The hours passed in tense preparation. Across the globe, humanity waited. They had no massive fleets to deploy, no advanced shield technology to protect their cities. Instead, they had turned their entire planet into a trap, a technological contradiction that defied the perfect logic of their enemy. As the Void Seeker fleet entered the solar system, Sarah worked with Zara to fine-tune their defenses. The Novans' knowledge combined with human improvisation had created something unprecedented, a defense that didn't try to match the enemy's strength, but instead embraced weakness as an advantage. They're launching their first wave, Colonel Zhang announced. Multiple targets, coordinated attack pattern. Admiral Hayes stood tall. Initiate Project Babel. All stations, commence transmission. Across Earth, thousands of installations activated simultaneously. Ancient radio towers pulsed with quantum energy. Defunct satellites began broadcasting impossible signals. The very atmosphere became alive with contradictions. Primitive technologies operating in ways that violated their own principles. The effect on the Void Seeker fleet was immediate and dramatic. Their perfect formation began to waver as their sensors encountered data they couldn't process. Ships collided as their navigation systems received conflicting information from what appeared to be primitive guidance beacons, but carried quantum signatures that shouldn't exist. "It's working," Dr. Rivera exclaimed, "but they're adapting faster than before. The quantum field is already degrading in sectors 3 through 7. Sarah had anticipated this. Initiate Phase 2. Activate the ground-based resonators. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, in abandoned mines and forgotten bunkers, hybrid devices began to pulse. They generated waves of technological dissonance, radio signals that carried quantum information, mechanical computers that performed calculations that should have required quantum processors, primitive electric circuits that somehow transmitted faster than light. The Void Seekers' adaptive algorithms struggled to compensate. Their perfect logic encountered paradox after paradox, each solution only creating new contradictions to resolve. Ships began to break formation, their coordinated attack dissolving into chaos. But the enemy's raw power remained devastating. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, vaporizing sections of Earth's surface. Each strike was precisely calculated to cause maximum damage, even as their strategic coordination faltered. "We can't maintain this interference indefinitely," Zara warned. "Their core programming is too robust. They'll eventually find a way to process these contradictions." Sarah watched the battle unfold, her mind racing. "Then we don't give them time. Admiral, permission to implement the Prometheus protocol." Hayes studied her for a long moment, understanding the implications. "You realize this could destroy everything we've built. All our defensive systems, even the Novan hybrid tech." "Yes," Sarah confirmed, "but it will also create a cascade failure in their fleet. They won't be able to avoid processing the data. And when they do—" "Do it," Hayes ordered. "Colonel Zhang, begin evacuation of all surface installations. Dr. Rivera, power up the quantum core." The Prometheus protocol was humanity's ultimate gambit, a virus that didn't attack the Void Seekers' systems, but instead forced them to acknowledge realities that their perfect logic couldn't accept. It would transmit through their own quantum scanning beams, using their strength against them. Sarah and Zara worked frantically to initiate the protocol, their hands flying over controls as they prepared to unleash technological chaos. Around them, the command center shook as enemy weapons found their targets. "Prometheus protocol initiating," Sarah announced. "Transmission in 3, 2, 1. The effect was catastrophic. Every contradictory signal, every impossible reading that Earth had been generating suddenly focused into a single coherent transmission. It shot upward through the Void Seeker's own scanning beams, carrying with it the fundamental paradox of humanity's defense, the seamless merger of the primitive and the advanced, the logical and the absurd. In orbit, the Void Seeker fleet began to tear itself apart. Ships crashed into each other as their navigation systems encountered data that proved and disproved itself simultaneously. Weapons turned on their own vessels as targeting systems tried to resolve calculations that had no solution. "It's spreading through their entire network," Dr. Rivera reported in awe. "The paradoxes are replicating faster than they can quarantine them." The massive ships, Monuments to technological perfection began to fall. Some exploded as their power cores overloaded. Others simply went dark, their impossibly advanced systems shut down by problems that even their superior intelligence couldn't resolve. As the last of the Void Seekers disappeared in a cascade of self-destruction, Sarah felt Zora's crystalline hand on her shoulder. "Your species has done what we thought impossible," the Novan said softly. "You didn't just fight the Void Seekers. You made them question their own existence. Their perfect logic couldn't survive contact with human improvisation." Admiral Hayes watched the final ships fall from orbit, burning up in Earth's atmosphere like artificial meteors. "What happens now?" "Now," Zora replied, "we rebuild. Together. The Void Seekers will return. Their kind always does. But next time, we'll be ready. The alliance between our peoples has created something new, something that even perfect machines cannot comprehend." Sarah looked up at the sky, where the remains of humanity's victory streaked across the atmosphere. They had faced extinction and survived, not by becoming more advanced, but by remembering their roots, by turning their very limitations into strengths, by daring to be imperfect in a way that perfect machines could never understand. The signal that had started it all had not been meant for humans, but they had heard it, answered it, and in doing so, had written themselves into a story much larger than their own world. As dawn broke over the Atacama Desert, Sarah Chen smiled, knowing that humanity had earned its place among the stars not through perfection, but through the beautiful chaos of innovation and determination that made them uniquely human.